and Saints. Boog, what type of prospect do the Saints get in Apple?
He's a big physical corner, man. I think he's a guy who can play some man-to-man, some bump and run. The problem with him in New York, guys, is he underachieved. I think that's going to be the biggest thing in New Orleans is can they get this guy to play up to his potential? If they can, then I think they got a big corner who can help opposite Lattimore. If they can't, then he's not going to be any different than Ken Crawley or P.J. Williams. He has potential, but he just hasn't unlocked it yet.
Did you see situations in your playing days where players may have been underachieving in one spot, then get to a locker room where they may have had former college teammates or known other guys that kind of got them going from a personality standpoint, then kind of unlocked them physically on the field?
Well, I don't know if playing with teammates can unlock it. What I think can happen is you get in a familiar environment, and once you get in that environment, those guys can spawn you to compete better. And to me, that can help. But just playing with a guy is not going to make you play better. But natural competition, competing against somebody that's familiar with you, to me, that'll help.
Does this move push the Saints up in your – like, is it enough to actually push the Saints up maybe ahead of one of the other contenders, be it like the Vikings, the Rams, something like that?
I'm sorry, you broke up a little bit, T-Bob. Say it again?
Yeah, so does this move in getting Eli Apple, because it does improve on the Saints' biggest weakness, I guess it's a question of how much improvement, does it push them, like, is it enough to push them past another contender in your mind, be it the Vikings or the Rams?
It's not.
Okay.
I think the only way you can do that to the Saints is that Davenport, Rankins, Jordan, those guys are going to have to do that. And if they play to that level, then and only then can that defense get to the level where you say, now this defense not only can keep you in some games, but maybe can win you some games. The problem is that some of the other teams in the NFC, when they're at full strength, okay, when the Rams are at full strength, the Rams can beat you offensively or defensively, okay? I know the Eagles are struggling right now, but I think they're going to make a run later in the year. When the Eagles are at full strength, they can do the same thing because they play so physical up front. Eli Apple will help because there's a weakness with the New Orleans Saints on the back end. However, he's not a game changer. He's not Patrick Peterson. I had the Saints got Patrick Peterson. Here's what I tell you this morning. I tell you that the Saints now have a defense that they can compete with anybody, because what Peterson will do is you can put him man-to-man. And Lattimore, as long as he's not gaining too much weight, which he looked like he was early this season, he's come down, he's playing better now. As long as he is in shape, now you got two corners that can play man-to-man against anyone in the National Football League, in my opinion. Now you take the other 9 guys, and now that allows Dennis Allen to be very, very creative.
Yeah.
But he's not Patrick Peterson. That's the reason why they wanted Patrick Peterson so much.
Is Peterson a movable piece?
I think he's movable. I mean, if you were rebuilding an organization and you had an asset that was that valuable, I think that, I try to move him because he's not going to be a part of the rebuild. And I think if you're Peterson, that's why you want out, because now you got Rosen at quarterback. And even if you want to say we're not rebuilding, listen, if you put the rookie at quarterback, you're not going to win for 2 or 3 years because he's got to go through the growing pains and got to figure it out. So if you're Peterson and you're 27, 28 years old, and you're still in the prime of your career, you don't want to go through a rebuild. And the way I would frame it is I would go to the owner and like, listen, I've given you 7 Pro Bowls. I've given you some All-Pros. I want to win. So at least do me a solid and let me win. Okay, let me go somewhere and win. You can get a draft pick, but allow me to go somewhere. That's the way I would frame it to the Cardinals ownership. Now, whether they listen, I don't know, but I definitely try.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if they are indeed going through a rebuild, like Patrick Peterson could represent a ton of value in that rebuild. Boog, were you as kind of were you laughing as much as all of us were when you heard the Cowboys traded a first-round pick for Amari Cooper?
Well, I was laughing on one end because of the Oakland Raiders. However, everyone is saying, the Cowboys are dumb, the Cowboys made a mistake. Here's how you got to look at this, guys. The Cowboys aren't going to be picking in the top 10. So probably they're going to be picking somewhere probably between, if I had to bet, probably between 15 and, 25 maybe.
Yeah.
So here's what you're saying. I can trade that pick for a 24-year-old receiver who's been used the wrong way this year by John Gruden, who, if you look at the tape, he's given you a couple of Pro Bowl years. He's given you, I think he made 1 Pro Bowl. He's given you a couple of seasons of 1,000 yards. He's 24, T-Bob. All right, now go back and look at the draft last year. Let's look at the receivers that were drafted in the first round. All right, the kid DJ Moore from Maryland went to Carolina, and then Calvin Ridley was drafted late in the draft at like 28 or whatever. Now Ridley is a different cat because he's 24 years old already. So he's kind of the anomaly.
I never knew that.
He's 24 years old. Like, he's a different rookie. So normally, and my point to all that is this: normally the guys that you got in the first round, other than the 2011 draft when you got Julio and AJ Green, the receiver draft has kind of been hit and miss. So if you're Dallas, you kind of get a commodity that's proven, who's showing you he can win in the league. You get him for a first-round pick. I get it. Some people don't get it just because, people think first-round pick, you're always going to get Julio Jones. It hadn't worked out that way in the NFL. Just go back and do a little research.
Yeah, I mean, look, Julio would command an even higher price than that, like a Pat P type of price. Talking to Booger Mcfarland at ESPN Booger. I know none of y'all know who he is, so I have to reintroduce him every single week. Boog, the Saints schedule coming up. They're in Minnesota, then they're at home versus the Rams, and they're at Cincinnati, then they're at home versus the Eagles. That is quite the gauntlet there. And how do you think the Saints come out of those 4 games, record-wise?
Well, the game I'm looking at, obviously, is the game against the Los Angeles Rams. That game's going to be in New Orleans. I think that's going to be a statement game. To me, that game will dictate what happens after the rest of it. Because I think from a psychological standpoint, if you're in New Orleans, you know that there's a high possibility that if you want to get where you want to go in the postseason, you're going to have to deal with the Rams. And so that game in New Orleans, with that dome rocking against the best team in football right now, I can't wait to watch it, not to see how the Saints offense is going to perform, but I just want to see, can the defense and Dennis Allen slow down the Rams, because it's a very, very difficult task.
And Boog, in some college news, was that targeting on Devin White?
By the letter of the law, from what everyone says it was, I disagree. I don't think it was targeting. I think that it was a bad call. I've talked to people that were officials that thought it was a bad call. However, guess what, guys? We can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Keep complaining about it. They're not going to change it. Stop talking about it. Let's figure out a way that the guys that they put in there help this team win. Because talking about Devin White, guess what that's going to do? Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Bug, through the first 7 weeks of the season, seems like the fans aren't too happy with your automobile that you're traveling up and down the sidelines with. Is there going to be any movement there?
That's not my problem. I mean, I can care less whether it, I get it. Listen, I get it. I understand. But here's the thing: the fans aren't saying is that the NFL has always had a camera caught on the sideline. As a matter of fact, they got it on both sides. Okay, and my card is actually a little less cumbersome than the camera card. So I think what it is fans say, okay, man, let's complain about that. Let's talk about that. And in actuality, it's really not that big a deal. You know why? Because when you're behind the camera card, you can't see it all. When you're behind my card, you at least see TV and you can watch the game. So it's actually not that bad of a deal. I just think fans need something to complain about and get behind a social media movement and let's talk about it. The NFL approved it. I don't think it's going to change, but if they do, that's kind of up to them. That's kind of out of my pay grade, big guy.
I would be upset if they changed the Booger Mobile, if only because Booger Mobile is maybe the best name that I've ever heard. I love it.
It's pretty solid, and Mr. Skipper's got to be pretty happy with that response, man. Way to toe the company line. That's good stuff there on the cell. We'll talk to you next week.
Later, bud.
All right,
Later,
man.
Bug.
There he is.